Going to take a quick break and talk about Drizzly. Drizzly is fantastic. It's the most convenient way to buy beer, wine, and spirits with delivery to your doorstep. And get this, under 60 minutes. It's insane.
Yeah, I think what's also great is you can compare prices and shop different places and get your best deal.
And you're shopping and you're doing a lot of cooking during the holiday season and you're all busy and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I need that bottle of wine.
Wrapping presents and you don't want to have to take time to run to the store.
Or you forget a gift.
Yeah.
And you need it delivered real quickly. Here's the way to do it. You download the Drizzly app or go to drizzly.com. That's DRIZLY.com. And Drizzly is giving every new customer $5 off their first order. What's that promo code, Seaton?
FAST5 at checkout.
FAST5 at checkout. It's drizzly.com.
Parent, volunteer, employee. With your different roles and busy schedule, how can you find time to complete the degree you once started? Cornerstone University's programs are designed for busy adults like you. Take one course at a time, back to back, to move through your degree quickly. Attend through an on-campus, live stream, or 100% online format, whichever works best for you. If you're ready to go further in your goals, we're here to make it possible. Achieve without ceasing. Learn more at adult.cornerstone.edu.
Hi, everyone. This is Jillian with Court Junkie. Court Junkie is a true crime podcast that covers court cases and criminal trials using audio clips and interviews with people close to the cases. Court Junkie is available on Apple Podcasts and podcastone.com.
Impact of Influence, the tragic story of a powerful South Carolina family and the mysterious deaths that they are linked to. Thanks again for joining us for another episode. In this episode, Seaton, of course, is here. I am Matt Harris. And also with us is legal analyst, former DA and friend, John Snyder. Hi, John.
Hey, Matt. How are you guys doing today?
We are great. It's amazing how much is breaking and how much is coming out. I will hope that you all go back who haven't and binge the previous episodes. Just to recap a little bit, a quick timeline rundown of the deaths connected to the Murdoch family. July 2015, Stephen Smith, 19, found dead in the middle of the road in Hampton County. The case ruled a hit and run. Many people did not believe that was the correct ruling. The case was reopened a few weeks ago by SLED, saying they were reopening the case based on information gathered during the Murdoch investigation. And I advise you to go back and listen to our Stephen Smith episode. 2018, Gloria Satterfield falls and dies. The 57-year-old Satterfield was Murdoch's housekeeper, we believe. She died in February 2018 due to a, quote, trip and fall in Hampton County. And Gloria was a housekeeper at the Murdochs, and Paul's father, Alex, settled her case by paying out the family over $500,000. February 2019, there's the fatal boat crash that killed Mallory Beach. 2 months later, Paul Murdaugh is charged with 3 felonies and pleads not guilty. And on June 7th, Alec Murdoch finds his wife Maggie and his son Paul shot to death on the Murdoch family hunting camp grounds. That brings us to the latest with the Murdoch family involving the 2019 boat crash, an alleged civil conspiracy, and the papers that were just filed. Tell me about that, Seaton.
It was filed by Connor Cook's lawyer. He was one of the passengers of the boat. The petition was filed on behalf of his lawyer.
He had a broken jaw in the accident when the 17-foot console fishing boat owned by Paul's father, Alec, drove into the bridge in the early morning hours. And this petition dropped on July 7th. Okay, now this is where we bring in the legal expert and former DA, John Snyder. So this filing, is this what I read was a Rule 27?
That's right. So a Rule 27 is a procedural motion that is unique to South Carolina, where you are basically announcing that there will be a potential lawsuit or a potential controversy, and you're asking the court to give you or your team the opportunity to gather testimony, subpoena documents, and begin to gather the evidence that you need to eventually bring a full-fledged lawsuit.
So at this point, it's not an actual lawsuit, but it's just all you say is like unique to South Carolina. So in other words, for the Connor's team to gather information without the help of the court, none of these people would have to show up for a deposition?
So that's right. So Connor right now has no standing to gather documents or depose witnesses or, get anything. And so by filing this motion, this will give the court an opportunity to provide an order to his team to get the deposition testimony they need, which would be subpoenaing probably all of these depositions that have already been done in the wrongful death lawsuit, petitioning perhaps South Carolina Wildlife, their police files, all of the things that are slowly dripping out that make it look like a potential conspiracy.
Some people, I guess it's like a discovery process.
It's a pre-lawsuit discovery process, and the idea behind that is you want to gather facts before you file. A lot of times in North Carolina, you have to file and then gather facts, and so this procedural motion allows you to quickly get the things you need to file a lawsuit and not clog the courts with frivolous lawsuits based on potential allegations.
Okay, so they're saying they're not sure that there was this conspiracy, but we want to get more information.
They're saying, hey, before we sue someone for fraud and conspiracy, we want to get some, actual evidence. And
right.
So this procedure gives them that chance. And it's, it's actually a good thing because it doesn't matter what the facts of a lawsuit tend to be. The mere filing of one creates a stigma against somebody. So this is actually a very effective legal tool.
Okay, so let's get to what is they are looking to find out. One of the big things is the petition states that evidence from the boat crash is, quote, is now unable to be accounted for by law enforcement authorities. That's one of the biggies, which those, we had talked about that in one of the episodes too, that some things were missing. And Seaton, what do you remember about being...
They're saying Paul's cell phone was missing from the scene, as well as he did not have his pants on at the time, but his pants were over to the side, and maybe possibly his wallet would be in there, which would have had his fake identification that he used. But those are the two things that I saw that were potentially missing.
We're missing a standard interview with Paul that would happen in any boat crash case. These guys are trained in how to collect evidence for boat crashes and boating under the influence. And so this lawsuit, this pre-lawsuit filing is basically saying, hey, you guys didn't do any of that. You were starting to make it sound like I'm the one that was driving and caused this boat crash. And so I want to know what's going on. And Now you're saying you don't have key evidence that would exonerate me as a potential party in this criminal activity.
That's a big thing we haven't really got into yet, is the fact that we'll get into some of the specifics but in a second, but there was a time that it appeared they were making Connor look as he was the driver. And so that's one of the things they're trying to get to the root of here. Why was that even brought up when a lot of people on the scene were already saying it wasn't, Paul was driving.
Well,
right.
Yeah, I think the boyfriend in his deposition was very clear that Paul was driving, but I want to circle back to the missing information. They also said that DNA was missing, which would have proven where Connor was in the boat at the time of the accident, because he had injuries, I'm assuming blood or other DNA. Broken jaw.
Yeah, I read that. That's my guess is that it's a big DNA soup party, and they would have a hard time showing at the time that they hit the piling who was actually where, because it sounds like if you're drinking and cavorting all day, your DNA is going to be everybody that was on the boat's DNA.
So and he admits to driving the boat.
Yeah, he does say he drove.
He drove it at one point when Paul had left the helm of the boat to have a conflict with his then girlfriend. He did drive the boat, so I mean, he definitely would have his hands on the steering wheel.
Okay, let me give you a little bit of what is in some of the articles and in the petition, and then we'll circle back with John. But the attorneys want to ask the officers about the failure to offer field sobriety test on Paul Murdaugh at the scene of the crash. Paul, remember, killed about a month ago, murdered, and also the driver charged, indicted with driving the boat. and question about other, quote, investigative irregularities, including the loss of evidence, which we talked about, that exonerated Cook and implicated Murdoch. They say in the documents that the officers, quote, may have information of a collusion and or a civil conspiracy to shift the blame for the boat accident away from Paul Murdaugh by wrongfully shifting the focus to Connor Cook. That's a pretty big accusation. They're saying that potentially there was a whole concerted effort, not just a lack of the correct investigative things, but it seems to be that they're saying this is more than just missing some things. This is almost nefarious in a sense. That right? Am I reading that right?
That is absolutely the implication that this filing is giving, and would be why you would want to get information before you allege that someone's engaged in a conspiracy. You want to go to the court with satisfactory evidence. To be fair to them, right,
that is not, they've not been charged with that. The lawsuit doesn't come against that, but that is what we take as the implication from this.
That's their open basis in seeking the Rule 27 order.
It goes on to say, and I'll quote, to the 5 officers may know of the conspiracy, here's the quote, to cloud the investigatory issues and disseminate false information in the community with the intention of misleading law enforcement and prosecution, charging parties and the public into wrongly and falsely believing Connor Cook should be arrested and charged as the boat operator. So that they're even looking at to find out if the officers involved were telling the public, hey, Connor might have been driving or was driving. And that's pretty inflammatory. We had talked about it in the earlier episode with you and also in the boating accident one when they filled in part of the form and it said, Seaton, you remember that?
It was unclear.
Unclear, right.
Which at the time when we did this, before this came out, we said, well, maybe if Paul is saying it wasn't me, and everybody else is, maybe they still write unclear. Right, that's a possibility. Is that a possibility?
Well, there's two things here that are kind of glaring. One is you are creating reasonable doubt in your own evidence so that Paul's lawyer could argue, well, they don't know 100% that Paul was the responsible party.
Okay.
And therefore, because you can't prove beyond a reasonable doubt, that so they are creating an inference and maybe potentially tainting the jury pool by bringing in these slanted
confusion,
by creating intentional confusion that would help Paul from not getting convicted.
And you have in this one deposition, Anthony Cook, Connor's cousin, is quoted as saying, this is in the recordings from the scene played during deposition. And it's Mallory Beach's boyfriend, Anthony Cook. That mother bleeper needs a rotten bleeping prison. He yelled about Paul Murdaugh at the scene of the crash, according to the recordings. He ain't going to get in no bleeping trouble. My bleeping girlfriend is gone. Pretty damning stuff right there, and very sad, obviously.
And not included in the actual police report.
Oh, that was in the, that's right, that was in the recording from the deposition, but not in the police report. That is weird. Is that weird? I mean, it seems weird.
Well, actually, it was. So there were 3 different agencies who responded. There was the Beaufort County Sheriff's Department, there was DNR, but also Port Royal responded. And in Port Royal's report, the officer did say that Anthony implicated Paul.
Yeah, not with those quotes from the mother bleeper and all that.
No, not that, but he said he was very aggressive. Paul had started to walk towards the police vehicle where Anthony was, and he said that
they were yelling at him and
saying Paul did it.
That was in the one report, and then the other one said
there was
unclear.
Confusion.
Yes. We had talked a little bit about this with you, John, when we had you on in the previous episode and what we did think. It is the questioning about whether or not the field sobriety test was an issue.
Because they reported that Connor was offered a field sobriety test at the scene, but he declined. But there's no report that they tried to get a field sobriety at the scene from Paul.
Right. And so if you go back and look at the statute for voting under the influence, a refusal can create a preponderance or a preferential inferring that you are in fact guilty of being under the influence. And so the fact that they would give that to Connor and then not Paul is further evidence that it looks like they're trying to potentially put this on Connor at the actual crime scene.
Yeah, the Austin Pritchard, who is DNR, said that he offered the Connor the field sobriety test because he was starting to, quote, zero in on him as the main suspect. Connor refused to take the test, and Pritchard filled the sheet out for refusal. Okay, explain to us about the South Carolina DNR. Like, why they're not investigating murders very often.
So their primary focus is to keep the waterways and the public lands safe in South Carolina. And so their primary focus is making sure people are complying with hunting regulations by not poaching deer or, baiting fields so that, you just go out and pop a couple of rounds and get your deer for the year.
Yeah.
They make sure that the regulations of the state are maintained. These are not generally highly trained crime
investigators,
crime
sergeants.
They are not. You're not going to see a CSI version of wildlife safety guys. And so the people that are drawn to be in that line tend to be those that are, outdoor oriented, or they have no interest in working in a city or patrolling streets. They are happy being on a boat and sitting in a field all day. And so it's not always your high profile.
Right.
None of them are necessarily, dreaming of going to Quantico and becoming part of the FBI at some point.
Well, right. Take a break for a moment. Talk about a new concept in glasses, sunglasses, contact lenses, and eye exams. I'm talking about Warby Parker. I've been using them even before they signed on with us. Love the free home try-on program. It's awesome.
Yes, this is the first time I've tried Warby Parker, and you get to order 5 pairs of glasses, try them for free for 5 days, and there's no obligation to buy. They ship for free, including a prepaid return shipping label. Yes, and I took the quiz, and I found out I needed wide. They have everything from extra narrow to extra wide.
Yes, and the quiz helps you, and the selection, amazing. When I show people the Warby Parker app that allows you to do a virtual try-on, they're blown away. And remember, don't let your FSA and HSA dollars go to waste. Put them to good use in Warby Parker prescription glasses, prescription sunglasses, contact lenses, and eye exams.
Glasses start at $95, including prescription lenses.
Warby Parker is committed to providing exceptional vision care online and in stores. Try 5 pair of glasses at home for free at warbyparker.com/Murdoch. That's warbyparker.com/Murdoch, Murdaugh.
Hear that? Is that America cheering or a sausage patty sizzling to perfection? It's time to cheer for Egg McMuffin and fresh cracked eggs at McDonald's. It's time to wake up to the aroma of freshly baked biscuits and treat yourself to a real honest-to-goodness morning meal. Breakfast. It's on at McDonald's. Now get any breakfast sandwich for just $2. Available only through the app. Mobile order and pay available at participating McDonald's. McD app download and registration required.
Then it's interesting that, I don't know where the jurisdiction lies, but he's doing all that, this Pritchard, and he went into Paul's, who was accused of driving, Paul's ex-girlfriend room, and he described her as skittish and told her she was worried because Alec was trying to come into her room. And he said that Alec Murdoch tried to enter her hospital room while she was speaking to DNR. So he's doing a lot of investigating. Is the DNR on that because it's a boating accident?
It's because it's a boating accident. And now these guys are all highly trained on how to investigate a boating accident and boating under the influence, which, going back to y'all's point, it's really weird they didn't follow the standard protocol of recording witness interviews and having the alleged driver submit to a field sobriety test.
Well, and a lot of the people had relationships with the Murdoch family, so I don't know how people recuse themselves. I think Pritchard, he played in a golf tournament that the family put on, which I don't make much of that, but another one of the investigators from DNR, Brock, he had been to their home, and his wife had worked for the law firm that the dad was a part of.
Well, and John and I talked earlier about this. What's interesting to me, and I asked John about it, he found it interesting too, is when they start talking to a few of these people, including Austin Pritchard, He's like, I don't know the Murdaugh family, basically is what he said. I don't know the Murdaugh family. Then when he was asked if he ever hunted with him, he's like, well, I think I've been to the golf tournament once. Another person said something like, which one was it that said, well, it's not like I vacation with him or anything.
That was Brock, but he had been to their home, and his wife used to work for their law firm.
So when you're interviewing somebody, John, and somebody starts saying, well, it's not like we're best buddies, you lick your chops as a attorney doing an interview?
Absolutely. So if I'm saying to Matt, how well do you know Morgan Fogarty?
Yeah.
Well, we don't go on vacations together. Well, okay. So that if that's a pie, you just cut a little tiny slice. Now I've got all the rest of the pie to go after you on. So you might say,
he's sending you a signal that, well, but obviously you know more than you're saying.
I mean, it literally, a good litigator is like starts to foam at the mouth and get like giddy about what's going to happen with the next few questions, because that's such a non-answer.
Yeah.
Well, one of the Beaufort County Sheriff's officers was represented by Alec at the time of the crash. He was actively representing him in some sort of case.
That's right. And then he denied really any knowledge of them. And so going back to kind of the beginning, those answers point to a real conspiracy and someone who is trying to hide something.
Because why would it? I mean, they have to know that they're going to find out. Everybody knows Murdoch's in law enforcement probably in that area. So I don't understand why they would even attempt to go like, well, I sort of, yeah.
But to be devil's advocate, when the night of the accident, who was on call was who was on call. It didn't matter. So don't you think the police had to respond? It didn't matter if they knew the family or not.
So to answer that issue is why law enforcement has books and books and books of procedures, so that even in a small town where everybody knows everyone, maybe everybody goes to the same church, they all eat at the same restaurant on Friday or Saturday night. If you have strong procedures in place, you stay above reproach as a law enforcement officer.
Okay, so the main problem is that they didn't follow the procedure.
That's right. And so not following the procedure, hiding personal connections, and being under oath and still not coming forward about things all point to a conspiracy and the basis of filing that Rule 27 motion.
Well, and Brock talks about, we don't go on vacations together. That's what I was talking about earlier. And then he goes like, well, I think John Murdoch, who's Paul's uncle, probably has my cell phone number. Come on, man. And then I've been to his house, maybe once. This quote is once or twice, 3 times. And his wife worked at the Murdoch law firm. He was not forthcoming at all about the relationship. And I don't understand why, because it's so easy to find out.
That's very much like how many beers did you have? Well, I had a couple, which generally means like 6 to 8.
Yes. Jack Keener is a Beaufort County Sheriff's Office deputy who had connections to the Murdoch's law firm. In 2015, the firm helped Keener and his family win a $2.5 million settlement. And in the deposition, Jack Keener, the corporal of Beaufort County Sheriff's Office, said, I don't know the Murdochs.
Well, he said it was
$2.5 million.
He said it was a family member. We don't know what kind of family member. I mean, that could have been his third cousin twice removed. We don't really know.
Yes, but $2.5 million is a number, you'd remember if your cousin suddenly showed up in a brand new Corvette.
Well, that's true. That is true.
He says, I only knew that the family was lawyers and whatnot from Hampton. That's all I know. And I never met them. But why didn't you start out with, I know the Murdochs, of course. They're famous around here. I used their law firm and I got $2.5 million. Just say that and you're done.
That's right. And that is very much a less than candid law enforcement officer's response, which is kind of be like, really, in any witness in any case that's hostile to the people asking them a question is going to be like, well, I know them, but I don't know them. You'd be like, what does that mean?
Right. Just come right out with it, right as the question's asked, and be done with it.
Well, one thing I was interested in is, what do you think the intention of this potential lawsuit is?
So I think there's the obvious answer, and then there's, kind of an interesting thing that I see developing. The first is Connor's wanting to clear his name completely and bring sunlight to the way these guys were hiding evidence. It will create an obvious issue with how the Murdoch handled criminal cases in their area and how law enforcement handles criminal cases in the area. So Connor's trying to shed truth. He will also be able to pursue civil damages against the county and possibly even the state. These guys were state and county employees that may have been attempting to frame him for a crime he didn't commit. And the other really nefarious issue is there's a murderer at large. And so the faster all the facts can be gathered and implications drawn, that may assist SLED in finding out who murdered Paul and his mother.
Yeah, because that still is still out there. That it's been a month, and questions can lead to other questions, which can lead to answers, which can take you down into a path of possibly finding out a connection there in some way, shape, or form, and also about their ability to investigate crimes.
That's right.
We wanted to also talk to you real quickly, and then we'll wrap it up, is about the fact that there could be criminal charges to an obstruction of justice. And there were sort of rumors out there.
Yeah,
I think Fit News reported possibly.
Fit News and the Island Packet both reported that Alec and possibly other members of the Murdoch family were being indicted by a grand jury for obstruction of justice, but the packet reported that a spokesman for the Attorney General's office would not confirm or deny.
Oh, yeah, a grand jury is a secret proceeding.
Okay.
And so you would not announce to the general public whether a grand jury has been convened. At some point, you're going to potentially see federal charges and federal law enforcement investigating if it appears there's a widespread, public corruption case. And I think that's part of Connor's Rule 27 motion, is to pull the evidence together to put a nice little bow on a packet to walk over to Columbia and say, here you go, FBI. You guys might, here's your public, corruption case.
Right.
If a grand jury, is it kind of the same thing where they're just investigating it, or they really feel that they have enough evidence to indict somebody?
So you've got kind of these threshold standards along the way. You've got, probable cause, and that is to believe that it's more likely than not that a crime was committed. Then that evidence gets submitted to a grand jury, which is, your peers who were presented the evidence, and then the grand jury decides, based on what we hear, we believe indictments should be handed down. And so it's a constitutional safeguard to make sure that people aren't just getting arrested for anything. But it is also, Matt and I talked about the most famous saying is, you can indict a ham sandwich if you want to, and how evidence gets put forward. But it's a secret way to collect evidence to let people, kind of have eyes on before you just go out and accuse them of committing a crime.
Who are the people on a grand jury? Could I get a notification that I have to serve on a grand jury, or is this?
Yes. So you, just like you get selected for county jury duty or federal jury duty, you get a notice that you've been selected to be on the grand jury pool, and you serve for 6 months, and usually once or twice a month you go in. Various law enforcement agencies come in, present their evidence, and then you all as a jury decide whether to issue an indictment or not.
Just one more question I had. Can you kind of explain what is obstruction of justice?
Obstruction of justice is a unlawful impediment to the gathering of relevant and important evidence to a case. And so, in layman's terms, if a policeman is trying to find out some fact and you come in and lie to the officer, steal evidence so the officer can't find it, or create some other stuff, try to hide things from law enforcement, that would be the basis of an obstruction of justice charge. And so we saw this on a national scale where if you lie to a FBI agent, you usually get charged with that particular violation and an obstruction of justice charge. So it's anytime you are intentionally, criminally trying to prevent law enforcement from being able to do their job properly.
That's different than the civil conspiracy petition, which is what's happening now, right? That's
yes. That's a criminal charge. Obstruction of justice
it's criminal.
Is something that the state or the federal government would
Right.
bring against a person, and in the criminal cases. And a civil conspiracy is, again, alleging some tortious action, some wrongdoing action by multiple people together with each other.
Got it. John Snyder, legal analyst, former DA, and a guy we keep bugging with phone calls. I appreciate it, John. We'll talk soon.
That was awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Seton, we want to clear something up about the previous episode, which I think was episode 6, about the July 2015, what was ruled a hit and run of Stephen Smith, 19, who was found dead in the middle of the road. And there's much controversy over that. Go back and listen to the episode. But you are in contact with Stephen Smith's mother. You have been for over a year now. And she helped us clear some things up.
Oh, yes. So I shared our episode from yesterday with us, and she said amazing job, which, again, we really appreciate. And she just said that there actually was a rape kit done and a gunshot residue test. So we reported that incorrectly. She said they also had fingernail clippings.
This is the FBI when you say they, right?
Well, she didn't clarify whether it was the FBI, and maybe what the incorrect reporting that we had received from other sources could have been that was actually done by the pathologist's office, and they were going to do it themselves.
So she's saying there was a kit done, because that was the word that they hadn't done one. So
right,
she's
and
saying there was one done.
There was one done, and there was a gunshot residue test. And they took fingernail clippings, and she believes that is what is missing, which that would potentially have the DNA.
And that comes from Stephen Smith's mother. Keep subscribing, keep sharing, and if you want, feel free to reach out to us if you have comments on the podcast. We'd love to hear from you. And thanks again for making this a big success. And we hope to get a lot of answers to some of these questions very, very soon.
Hear that? Is that America cheering or a sausage patty sizzling to perfection? It's time to cheer for Egg McMuffin and fresh cracked eggs at McDonald's. It's time to wake up to the aroma of freshly baked biscuits and treat yourself to a real honest-to-goodness morning meal. Breakfast, it's on at McDonald's. Now get any breakfast sandwich for just $2. Available only through the app. Mobile order and pay available at participating McDonald's. McD app download and registration required.
More than 1 in 3 people will face cancer in their lifetime. Unfortunately, fear can stop you from getting your cancer screening, but it won't stop cancer. Early detection can save your life. Don't wait for symptoms to appear to act. Cancer screening is safe, effective, and accessible for everyone, including free or low-cost screening programs. Go to cancerscreeninfo.com right now for free screening resources and recommendations from the American Cancer Society. Don't wait. Early detection can save your life. Go to cancerscreeninfo.com today. cancerscreeninfo.com.